Good morning everyone, this is your teacher Neelam Elawat and today we'll start a new chapter, that is organisms and populations. Dear students, in this particular chapter we'll be talking about the two aspects. The first is the organisms in the environment and the second is the populations. So to begin with, we know, dear students, that the living world, it is full of various types of organisms and it is amazingly complex. And when we try to understand the complexity, we will be able to identify the various levels of organization. Like as we can see in the picture as well, the molecules, they arrange to form the cells. So we can say the cell, which is a structural and the functional unit of life, is composed of various macromolecules. Then a number of cells, they are organized to form the tissues, and then tissues, they are grouped together to form the organs. The organs forms the body systems, and the body systems, they form an individual organism. And when a number of organisms are living in an environment, we call it as a population. So basically your organisms, they form the populations, and the populations then they form the communities, and communities form the ecosystem, and ecosystem forms the topmost level of hierarchy, that is biomes. So at every level of the biological organization that we study, we generally ask two kinds of questions, that is how and why. So how type of questions and the why type of questions, these are very, very important. Like when do we ask, why does a bird sing? Then we ask, how does a bird sing? So these how type questions, they seek the mechanism behind the process. They try to identify the mechanism behind a process. While the why type questions, they tell us the significance of the process. What is the significance of this process? Why this process is occurring means why this process is important. What is the significance of this process? Okay. So these two questions both are very, very important. Both are equally important. So whenever you are observing the nature around you with a scientific frame of mind, then you will always ask these two questions, and they are very important. Now coming to the next part of biology, that is ecology. So as we know, dear students, that organisms, they always interact with each other. The organisms who are living in a place, now suppose I take this chart. So in this area, if there are 10 people living, 10 individuals, 10 organisms are living in this particular area, then they will be interacting with each other. Okay, they are interacting with each other and they are also interacting with the environment. So this part of biology, where we try to study the interaction between the various organisms and how that organism interacts with the environment, is referred to as ecology. So ecology is the study of interaction of organisms among themselves as well as to their environment. Now this ecology has 4 levels. So ecology is concerned with 4 levels. So the first and the basic level is the organisms. The second is populations. Third is communities. And fourth is biomes. So the basic level of ecology is organisms. And the highest level is biomes. So let's first focus on the organism and its environment. See, we know, students, that organisms, they always interact with each other, they speak to each other, they communicate with each other. So the ecology at the organism level means this interaction with each other, this communication with each other, is called as physiological ecology. So the ecology at the organism level is referred to as physiological ecology, and this particular deals with the interaction among the organisms, the communication between the organisms, and how they are adapted to their environment. Okay, how that particular organism is adapted to its environment so that he can survive better and can reproduce better in that environment. We know, dear students, survival of the fittest, isn't it? If there is any organism who survive best in a particular environment, only that particular organism will multiply, will produce more of its progeny, and they will be able to survive there. So physiological ecology targets this particular aspect. We know, dear students, see, we have talked about in earlier classes, we know that the planets, they rotate around the sun. Okay, we know that planets, they rotate around the sun, and they also revolve around their axis. This rotation around the sun and revolution on their own axis, that brings about the fluctuation in the intensity and duration of temperature. And in case of Earth, it causes the formation of seasons also. Okay, आपकी जो अर्थ है वो सन के चारों तरफ चक्कर लगाती है, प्लस वो अपनी एक्सिस पर भी टिल्टेड है, अपने आसपास भी रिवॉल्व करती है. And because of this, there is change, there is a variation in the intensity and the temperature. Plus, if we look into the aspect of amount of rainfall, यानी कितना टेम्परेचर है, कितनी बारिश होती है, if we take into account these factors, then we can categorize, okay, we can categorize or we can understand the formation of various biomes, that is the desert, the rainforest, tundra. Okay, so we can understand the formation of various biomes. So this means these various biomes, they have different temperature which is prevailing there, different types of seasons they have, and they have a different amount of rainfall or the precipitation. Precipitation basically includes all types of you can say rain, snow, right, water that is being precipitated in any form. It could be a rain also, it can be snow also, it can be any other aspect also. So if we look at the if we look at the figure, I'm just magnifying the figure. Let's see this. Now on one side of the graph we have the average temperature. Okay, we have average temperature, and on the another side we have taken the amount of annual rainfall. So हमने एक तरफ जो है temperature को include किया है, and on the other side we are taking the annual precipitation, means the maybe the rainfall, maybe the snow. Okay, and we can see that we are representing all different biomes. Let's look at the desert. Okay, let's look at the desert. We see that here the temperature is somewhat between, let's say use a different color, the temperature is somewhat between the 20 and 25. Okay, so the temperature would be, the mean temperature, the annual mean temperature would be around between 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. Now looking at the another side, we can say that they have maximum rainfall which is nearly 50 centimeters. So जो desert biome है हमारा, वहाँ पर जो आपका annual mean temperature है वो हमेशा 20 से 25 के बीच में ही रहेगा, and the rainfall, the maximum rainfall could be 50, not more than that. So we can understand that here the temperature is also high and the rainfall is very less. बारिश भी बहुत कम होती है, so the availability of water is very less. Secondly, let's look at the grasslands. If we see the grasslands, dear students, again you will find that the maximum temperature is 25. In case of grasslands, the mean annual temperature would be around 25, and the rainfall would be, the maximum rainfall would be 100, or we can say between 50 to 100. So in case of grasslands, slightly the temperature is high, but the rainfall is also high in comparison to your deserts. Coming to a temperate forest, see, again in this case also the temperatures, the mean annual temperature is between 20 to 25, and the rainfall is between 200 to 250 centimeters. So again the temperate forest, they have a higher rainfall in comparison to the desert and the grasslands. Now coming to the tropical rainforest, if we look at the tropical rainforest, dear students, we will find that the temperature is 25. The mean temperature is approximately 25 degrees Celsius, and they exhibit the highest rainfall. Okay, the tropical forest, they exhibit the highest rainfall, that is between the 400 to 450 centimeters in a year. Just imagine, so tropical tropical forest, they have the maximum rainfall. They are receiving the maximum rainfall, and they also have a highest temperature. While in case of coniferous forest, we find that the rainfall is between approximately, the maximum rainfall is 350 centimeters, and they have a lower temperature, that is between the 10 to 15. So they have a temperature which is between 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, and the rainfall is between, you can say, 300 to 350. The maximum rainfall is 350 centimeters. Then we have the last but not the least, that is Arctic and Alpine tundra. In case of Arctic and Alpine tundra, we find the rainfall is between 100 to 150 centimeters, and the temperature is very, very low. That is, the maximum temperature which is recorded here is 0 degrees Celsius. Just imagine. So their temperature is very low, and the rainfall is just moderate. We can say the rainfall is more than the desert, but it is lesser than the coniferous forest, temperate forest, and the tropical rainforest. So we can see that the environment which is prevailing in these biomes and the rainfall which is there in the different biomes is considerably different, isn't it? And we know, dear students, that life cannot exist in extreme or harsh conditions. We know that. Okay, so life always exists in few favorable habitats. You will find that the extreme conditions of temperature and the extreme conditions of rainfall, you will find wherever there is extreme conditions, you will find that the number of individuals present there will be very less, while the conditions where neither there is more rainfall, neither it is less, nor the temperature is high, nor it is less, so they are considered more favorable in comparison to that. So you will find that there is large number of organisms, large number of individuals will be present around those locations. So as I told you, life exists even in extreme and harsh habitats, but the number would always be limited. Like you have the areas like desert, Rajasthan desert, the rain-soaked Meghalayas. In that area there is excessive rainfall. The deep ocean trenches, torrential streams, the polar regions where acute temperature is found, high mountain tops, the thermal springs and compost pits. So at these places you will find the extreme conditions. So number of individuals will be less, but they will be present. And even don't forget everyone that in our intestine also, our intestine is also a home for large number of microbes. हमारी जो intestine है उसके अंदर भी आपके hundreds of species of microbes are present, isn't it? Hundreds of species of microbes. So we see that there is much variation in the physical and the chemical conditions of different habitats. We can have a tropical rainforest where the rainfall is heavy and the temperature is very high. Then we can have deserts where the rainfall is very low and the temperature is high. So depending upon the physical and the chemical conditions, we can have different habitats. Okay, the most important abiotic components. See, environment basically, dear students, is made up of two components. One is biotic components and second is abiotic components. So the most important abiotic components, they basically include your water, light, temperature and the soil conditions. While your biotic components, they will include the pathogens, the parasites, predators and the various competitors. So thus bringing about the variation in different habitats. We will find that different types of you can say different amount of water is available, the amount of very light available to the in that particular area, the number of parasites that are surviving, the number of predators and the number of competitors which are available in that area. They are different in different habitats. Now coming to, let's focus on the abiotic components. Abiotic means non-living components. So first of all, we'll be focusing on non-living components. Non-living. So the you can say abiotic factors basically include the temperature, water, light and the soil. So there are four abiotic factors that are influencing the life of an organism in a particular area: temperature, water, light and the soil. Now before we start with the first you can say first factor, that is temperature, let me make it very clear. We know dear students, that organisms, they can only survive in a range of conditions. Okay, an organism, it can only tolerate a range of conditions, right? It can only tolerate a range of conditions so that it can tolerate, it can utilize the resources available and it can play its functional role in the ecosystem. And all these things together, we are referring them to as niche. So I hope you've understood what is a niche. Niche means a set of conditions, the amount of resources available that an organism can utilize, and the distinct function the organism performs in the ecological system. And all these systems, they are grouped together to form an area which is called a niche. Now let's understand the temperature, the effects of the temperature. As I was telling you that we have certain major abiotic factors. The very first is the temperature. Now temperature, dear students, is the most ecologically relevant environment factor. Okay, it is the most ecologically environment factor. See, we know that every organism, it can survive at a particular range of temperatures. We all know it, that organisms, they cannot survive the harsh conditions. Most of the individuals, they will die. So that is why your temperature becomes the ecologically relevant factor. And we know that temperature on the land where we are living, it changes seasonally. Like in winter it is less, in summers it is more. Now this phenomena, the temperature, it gradually decreases from equator towards the poles. So suppose this is there, this is our earth, these are the poles, this is north pole, this is south pole. So you will find that maximum temperature will be around the equatorial region. And as we go away from the equator towards the poles on either side, the temperature gradually decreases. Okay, it gradually decreases. And in case of polar areas and at high altitudes, right, it can be below the zero temperature can be there. So at high altitudes and at the North Pole and South Pole, we will find that the temperature may go down below 0 degrees Celsius. While in case of the tropical areas, these areas, the areas which are present near the tropic, okay, near the equator, we will find the temperature could be higher than 50 degrees Celsius. It can also increase higher than the 50 degrees Celsius, as we can have in case of tropical deserts. In addition to this, we can also observe that the average temperature in case of thermal springs and the deep sea hydrothermal vents, आपने देखा होगा कुछ जगह ऐसी हैं जहाँ पर गर्म पानी निकलता है. So those areas they are called thermal springs. Okay. Plus कुछ areas आपका ऐसा होंगे जहाँ पर you can say heat is coming out of the water. So those are called as hydrothermal vents. So यहाँ पर आपका जो temperature है अर्थ का, लैंड का, that will be more than 100 degrees Celsius. It can exceed 100 degrees Celsius. So we have, depending upon the temperature, we have different areas. In some areas the temperature is very low, in some areas the temperature is medium, and in some areas it is extremely high. So we know that all types of organisms, they cannot grow at, you can say they cannot grow in every temperature. Like, as we can talk about some examples, we know that mango tree, it cannot grow in temperate countries. Okay, it cannot grow in temperate countries like Canada or Germany. While in the same way, the snow leopard can never be found in the Kerala forest. And the tuna fish, which are very rare species, they cannot found beyond the tropical latitudes in the oceans. So these are certain characteristic features from which we can understand that each organism survives in a range of temperature. Okay, every organism survives in a range of temperature. And temperature basically, it affects the kinetics of enzyme. Kinetics of enzyme means the functioning of an enzyme. Our body contains lots of enzymes, and each enzyme, it operates at a particular temperature. So temperature, thus we can say temperature affects the functioning of enzymes, and it also affects our metabolic activity, because in our metabolism, like breaking of carbohydrate, fats and proteins, all these functions, they are regulated by the enzymes. So if the enzyme will not function, these processes will not occur. Similarly, in the physiological functions of the organisms, so temperature basically is controlling the three aspects. One is the kinetics of the enzyme, the functioning of the enzymes. Second is the basal metabolic rate, and third is the physiological functions of the organism. Now, depending upon how much temperature an organism can survive, okay, how much temperature an organism can survive, we can categorize the organisms into two types. One is eurythermal, and second is stenothermal. As the thermal, just look at the word thermal. Thermal means heat. Uri means wide range. So the organisms which can survive in a wide range of temperature, okay, the organisms that can survive in a wide range of temperatures, they are called as eurythermal organisms. And the stenothermal means the organisms which can survive in a narrow range of temperatures. Okay, the organisms that you can survive in a narrow range of temperatures, they are called as stenothermal organisms. And it includes majority of your fishes. We know that fishes, they can only survive in a narrow range of temperature, otherwise they will die. Okay, so I think you understood the aspect of temperature. So we have two types of organisms, eurothermal and stenothermal, depending upon the temperature in which they can survive. The second important factor is the water. And we all know, dear students, life cannot be life is not possible without water. We all organisms need water. And we should not forget even that life also originated in water on earth. जो लाइफ फर्स्ट लाइफ जो ओरिजिनेट हुई है वो वाटर में ओरिजिनेट हुई है. Isn't it? We know this. So all organisms, they need water to survive themselves on land. And in some areas we know, dear students, that water is limited. Like in desert areas, the availability of water is limited. And thus the plants or animals which are found in that particular area, they show different types of modifications. Like we know that in case of plants, their leaf has been reduced into spines. Their roots are very well developed so that they can extract water from the deep earth. Similarly, the animals also, they adapt themselves to the scorching heat. They hibernate, they show estivation, and they excrete less water in the form of urine. So the organisms which are living in that particular area, they show different adaptations so that they can survive better in those conditions. Now, apart from this, the productivity and the distribution of plants is also dependent upon water. Means if there is large quantity of water available, we will find a lot of vegetation around it. We will also find the number of organisms living around it is also more. While if there is no water available in that particular area, then less amount of number of plants or the number of organisms available in the vicinity of that area will be very, very less. On sometimes completely there is no life in that particular area. Now, from this reason, if we look at the desert plants, so it comes to our mind that these organisms, the plants or the animals who are living in that area, they are facing the scarcity of water. And looking into this aspect, it seems that the organisms who are living in water do not have any problem. But this is not the case. The aquatic organisms, in case of aquatic organisms, although they have the amount of water available is more, but in their case the chemical composition and pH is more important. Okay, for them, they respond to the chemical composition and the pH of water. Like the concentration means the amount of water, the amount of salts present per 1000. कि पानी में जो है जो salt की concentration है वो कितनी है. ठीक है. Now this salinity in parts per 1000, इसको हम per 1000 में express करते हैं. Inland waters means like ponds and the rivers that are around us. The salinity level of salinity is below 5, is less than 5, while in case of sea it is 30 to 35. Okay, and in some hypersaline lagoons where a lot of salt is available, it is even more than 100. So जो organisms पानी में रहते हैं उनके लिए पानी की chemical composition और pH ज़्यादा important हो जाता है. ठीक है. सो सैलिनिटी का लेवल हम मेजर करते हैं, हम देखते हैं कि इस पानी के अंदर कितना सॉल्ट अवेलेबल है. तो इनलैंड वाटर्स में हमारा 5% सॉल्ट अवेलेबल है. सी में वी हैव द सॉल्ट कॉन्सेंट्रेशन 30 to 35, while in some area it could be more than 100 also. So कुछ organisms हम देखते हैं बेटे that they can survive in a wide range of salinity. Means वो सॉल्ट की कॉन्सेंट्रेशन को टॉलरेट कर सकते हैं. दे कैन टॉलरेट अ लार्ज क्वांटिटी ऑफ salt's concentration. So such organisms, they are called as euryhaline. And as you can see in the picture, the example of euryhaline, can you see? It's common molly, Carcinus meos. These are your euryhaline organisms that can tolerate a wide range of salt concentration. While on the other hand, the goldfish and haddockfish, they are stenohaline, means they can only tolerate a narrow range of salt concentration in the water. Right? So they are referred to as stenohaline. So depending upon the salt concentration, we have two types of organisms. Okay, we have two types of organisms, that is stenohaline and the euryhaline. Okay, everyone? Now we know that freshwater organisms, they cannot live in the seawater, while the seawater organisms, they cannot live in the freshwater. Because of the pH difference, because of the salt difference. So this finishes our water concept. So first we have done the temperature, and the second factor we have completed is the water. Now let's come to the third factor. Third factor is light. Light. So what do you understand with the light? What type of light is required by plants? Can you tell me, everyone? Can you tell me? Yes, good. See, plants need sunlight for photosynthesis. Plants को खाना बनाने के लिए जो है sunlight की ज़रूरत होती है. So they need sunlight for preparing their food, and that process is called as photosynthesis. Now we know there are small forest plants like herbs and shrubs. Herbs and shrubs means the plants. Herbs and shrubs, which are small height plants. So they are adapted. They have adapted themselves to prepare their food even when the low sunlight is available to them. So these plants, they have adapted themselves to the low light intensity, because they are always shadowed by the tall plants. जो छोटे छोटे प्लांट्स आपने अक्सर देखा होगा कि जो बड़े प्लांट्स हैं उनके आसपास छोटे प्लांट्स ग्रो होते हैं, तो ये प्लांट्स अपने आप को अडेप्ट कर लेते हैं कि वो स्मॉल अमाउंट ऑफ लाइट की अवेलेबिलिटी में भी खाना बना सकते हैं. मीन्स दे कैन परफॉर्म द फोटोसिंथेसिस वेल इवन इफ द लाइट कंडीशंस आर वेरी लो. And many plants, they are also dependent on sunlight to meet their flowering period also. देखिए प्लांट्स को जो है खाना बनाने के लिए सनलाइट चाहिए. इन एडिशन टू दिस कुछ प्लांट्स को फ्लावरिंग प्रोड्यूस करने के लिए भी सनलाइट चाहिए. मीन्स दे कैन ओनली प्रोड्यूस फ्लावर डिपेंडिंग अपॉन द फोटोपीरियोडिज्म दे आर एक्सपोज टू. सम प्लांट्स दे रिक्वायर long duration of sunlight, and some plants they require short duration of sunlight. Only then they will bloom. Only then they will flower. They will produce the flowers. Okay. Now apart from this, there are many animals too that respond to the intensity of light. So many animals, they use the diurnal and seasonal variations in the light intensity and the photo period for timing their foraging and reproductive and migratory activities. So organisms भी अपने आप को इस तरीके से तैयार करते हैं that they come out of their areas only when there is lots of flowers available, when for eating or for foraging on them, for eating the leaves. And the reproductive system is also so built on that they show the reproductive cycle, or they reproduce only in such seasons when the large amount of food is available. And if there are extreme conditions, then they migrate, they leave from that place and go to an area where the temperature is suitable for them. Like as in case of Siberian crane, we must have seen many of the Siberian crane, they visit India, isn't it, when in their native places there is fluctuation temperature, when there is change in temperature. And we understand, dear students, we know that sun is the ultimate source of energy. We know this, that sun is the ultimate source of energy. Okay. All other sources of energy, they derived directly or indirectly energy from the sun. Like we talk about deep in the oceans, we know, like this is an ocean, look at this picture. Deep in the ocean you find that there is a scarcity of sunlight. Environment is dark and no energy is available from the sun, okay, in the dark areas. So we will find that the temperature is also less here, isn't it? So we can say that the availability of the light is linked with the temperature that is prevailing in that area. तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया में टेम्परेचर जो है वो सन की अवेलेबिलिटी से रिलेटेड होता है. अगर सनलाइट बहुत ज़्यादा अवेलेबल है, सो टेम्परेचर विल बी हाई, एंड इफ द सनलाइट इज लेस, then the temperature will be less. So this is an example. We know that deep in the oceans the environment is dark and there is no energy available from the sun, so there the temperature will be lesser. In particular areas में जो है आपका temperature less है. Now apart from this, the spectral quality of solar radiation is also important for life. सो सनलाइट के साथ साथ कितनी सनलाइट अवेलेबल है, इसके साथ साथ सनलाइट में से कौन सा रेडिएशन अवेलेबल है, इस पर भी आपकी लाइफ डिपेंडेंट होती है. वी नो दैट सनलाइट इज कंपोज्ड ऑफ वेरियस रेडिएशंस. वी हैव IR रेडिएशंस, वी हैव UV रेडिएशंस. सो सनलाइट इज ऑल्सो, these spectral quality is also important. Like we know that UV spectrum, it is harmful for the organisms. Okay, we know that whenever the UV rays, they will be available on the surface of the earth, they will harm the animals. Now apart from this, not all colored components, the colored components of the visible spectrum, I hope you know VIBGYOR, 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 your visible spectrum. So your visible spectrum basically is composed of 7 colors. Okay, so not only your UV radiations, but the different colors of the visible spectrum, the different color components of the visible spectrum, they are also available to the marine plants which are living at the different depths of the oceans. Okay, so color is also related to the depth. Okay everyone, so we will find that we have red algae, we have green algae, we have brown algae, depending upon the part of the sea where they are present, and this area is related to the availability of the colored components of the visible spectrum. Okay, this is associated with the areas of the visible spectrum. Okay everyone? Okay, now let's come to the next component that we have, last component, that is soil. We know that all plants, they grow in soil and they take the nutrients, they absorb water, and other mineral requirements are being fulfilled by the soil. So the nature of the soil and the properties of the soil, they are very important. And depending upon the nature and properties of the soil, we find that different types of plants are grown there. So the nature and the properties of the soil, they account for the different types of the soil, and in different soils we can grow different types of vegetation, different types of trees. In addition to this, we know soil composition, the grain size and aggregation. देखिए सॉइल का जो टाइप है, सॉइल किन चीज़ों से बनी है, उसके अंदर पार्टिकल्स का साइज़ कैसा है, क्या वो आपस में एग्रीगेट हो जाता है, क्लम्प हो जाता है, इन तीनों फैक्टर्स पर आपका डिपेंड करता है पर्कुलेशन रेट. पर्कुलेशन रेट मीन्स whether that soil will be able to hold the water or water will go away from the soil. क्या वो सॉइल पानी को होल्ड कर पाएगी या पानी उसके अंदर से बह जाएगा. ठीक है, आपने देखा होगा that we have different types of soil. We have red soil, black soil, intermediate soil, sandy soil. राइट, सैंडी सॉइल जो पानी को होल्ड नहीं कर सकती, पानी उसके अंदर से बह जाता है. So mainly if we want to grow plants in the soil, then we need to have we know that the soil should be able to hold the water. So thus the water holding capacity is very, very important. Now apart from these, there are certain parameters like pH, the types of minerals which are present in the soil, and the topography, means the area, the type of the area, whether it's a slanting, it's a flat one. They also determine the vegetation and the animals that are being observed in that particular area. तो सॉइल के अंदर किस तरीके का मिनरल कॉम्पोजिशन है, किस तरीके के मिनरल्स प्रेजेंट है, वो एरिया की टोपोग्राफी क्या है, स्लांटिंग है, फ्लैट है, सो इस पर भी आपके वेजिटेशन डिपेंड करती है, प्लस एनिमल्स, द टाइप्स ऑफ एनिमल्स विच आर अवेलेबल देयर. Like we see that the fishes, they will generally observed in the deep oceans or in the water only. Earthworm you will find digging into the soil, and if this water holding capacity is enough, then only you can easily grow the plants. So plants भी ऐसी soil में ही grow करते हैं जहाँ पर जो soil पानी को hold कर पाती है. ठीक है, so if the organisms, they are living in the water, like in the oceans, in the ponds. So in aquatic environment, the sediment characteristics determine the type of benthic animals. Now what is sediment characteristic? देखिए सपोज करिए कि ये आपका पॉन्ड है. ओके, क्लियर, वी नो इट. सो दिस इज योर पॉन्ड. Now depending upon what are the minerals available here, अब ये जो आसपास की सॉइल है जहाँ मिनरल्स यहाँ पर आ रहे हैं फ्लो ऑफ होकर पानी के साथ, सो इस पानी के अंदर किस तरीके का मिनरल्स हैं, किस तरीके के सेडिमेंट्स मौजूद हैं, ठीक है, उस तरीके के एनिमल्स यहाँ पाए जाएंगे. You will find some animals, they are floating on the surface of water, some plants, some organisms they are living deep in the water, some are intermediate. So these the amount, or you can say the type of vegetation which is found at different levels of the water. In case of aquatic environment, maybe it is a sea, maybe it is a pond. It depends upon the types of minerals that are being supplied into that particular pond, not by the humans, but by the activities like the run of water. The water which is flowing in the nearby area will also ultimately come into the pond. So along with that water, certain sediments, certain minerals will be coming. So depending upon the inflow of nutrients in that particular pond, we will have different types of the benthic animals that will be present here. Okay everyone? एक पॉन्ड के अंदर आपको अलग अलग तरीके के ऑर्गेनिजम्स मिलेंगे अलग अलग लेवल पर. एक पॉन्ड के अंदर जब पानी फ्लो होकर आता है तो उस पानी के साथ साथ वो अपने साथ कुछ मिनरल्स लाता है, सेडिमेंट्स लेकर आता है, और दीज सेडिमेंट्स एंड दीज मिनरल्स दे एड अप इनटू द पॉन्ड वाटर. तो इस पॉन्ड के अंदर वो ऑर्गेनिजम्स अवेलेबल होंगे जो इन सेडिमेंट्स को, इन मिनरल्स को यूज़ करके सर्वाइव कर सकते हैं. ठीक है बेटे? ओके. So I hope you've understood this topic till here, and if there is any doubt, any query you have, you can talk to me, or you can send your queries personally to me. Okay everyone? So you will be making notes of this topic and you will read the page numbers 219 to 222. Okay? So that's all for today. Bye everyone.